Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
All I gotta say is, who that? Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, Timothy J. Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. I just want to hope that you all enjoying your time off. It is Memorial Day. We're doing this show live. Special shout out to each and every one of you. I would be remiss if I didn't mention thoughts and prayers to the family members, and thoughts and prayers to those who sacrificed their life defending freedom in our armed forces. They paid the ultimate sacrifice in order for us to have the rights and the liberties that we exercise today. So hopefully, while you had your time off, you thought about those that aren't with us. But thank you so much for being with us here on the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. And on this edition, we're going to be talking about the Saints wide receiver room. And we're going to be talking about the Saints not adding a big bodied receiver. We know that the Saints wide receivers, the one they are going to be counting on consistently are Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and the most recently signed Brandin Cooks, which we're all familiar with him. Saints drafting him back in the day. But these three guys are similar in build. They have the similar skill set. And it has been a topic of conversation among Saints fans on podcasts, on different shows around. But, we're going to be talking about that on this episode. Do you think the Saints need to have that big body receiver? Can they thrive offensively without having that big body guy? But I want to give a special shout out to those in the chat right now as they file in. Special shout out to Big Belly, Derek, Addison, and others who have come here. And shouts out to you if you're watching this at home, if you had to work on this Memorial Day or wherever you are. I really do appreciate it. I ask that you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And also, I ask that you hit that like button if you enjoy the content. I'm also going to be on a podcast after this one is all said and done, the Flex Zone podcast. I put the link for that podcast in the description. I'll be on that show. Shouts out to Dre for inviting me on. So I'll be on that show talking Saints football. So that's going to be on immediately following this. So if you're not doing anything, or you just want to get some content, if you want to support your boy, you can come on over to that channel we're going to be talking New Orleans Saints football. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Saints and this wide receiver room. Now, this topic of conversation came from an interview that was conducted, interview that Brandin Cooks had with the media. There we go. And he was discussing, some of the talk that I alluded to at the beginning of this episode, which is, you look at Olave, you look at Shaheed, you look at himself, Brandin Cooks, and, all of them have the same similar build. And you're thinking to yourself, like, who is going to be that guy, that can make that catch in traffic? Who is going to be that wide receiver that could be a matchup nightmare, especially in the red zone? And, the question was asked to Brandin Cooks, and this is what he said.
Not at all. At the end of the day, wide out play is, can you beat your guy in front of you? And I think a lot of us can do that. So there's a lot of narrative. There's not a tall, there's not a big guy, but we all can separate. And so it doesn't matter the similarities that we got. We can all play in any space. Exactly what you said. A lot of versatility. You can put us anywhere. And then we got a lot of other guys as well. You talk about Sed and those guys, Bubs, and at the end of the day, we're going to do the best that we can and do our job to the best of our ability and let Coach kind of call the plays and let everything else take care of itself.
So as you can see, Brandin Cooks, he's not discouraged by that. He feels like if you got the skills to pay the light, the water, and the phone, it really don't matter. But, man, you look around the National Football League and you normally see a different dynamic. You'll see that shifty wide receiver that probably can serve as that number one on occasions. The person that may get between 70 to 80 catches in a better situation, probably over 100 catches. And then on the opposite side, you'll probably see that big 6'3", 6'4" type wide receiver, that guy that's going to be able to absorb some of the punishment, the guy that in big time situations, crucial situations, he is going to get the football during that time because of his size. Normally you'll probably have a cornerback, they range between maybe like 5'9", 5'10", and 6 feet tall. And you have that wide receiver that could be 6'4", 6'5", and he already has a freakishly athletic repertoire already. And it's going to be tough for that 6 foot tall, 5'11" type cornerback to be able to defend that big time wide receiver. So I still think the New Orleans Saints need that type of receiver. The problem is you're not going to find that right now. Like you had opportunity maybe in free agency when it first started. Maybe you could have gotten somebody. But, when you look at who's out there and who's available, I know Keenan Allen is still available. The ties that he has to Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore during his time when he was with the Chargers could help the New Orleans Saints maybe bring him along. And it also helps that the New Orleans Saints have a little bit of money to play with right now. But is Keenan Allen going to change your situation? Like, Keenan Allen is 33 years old. All of his best football is pretty much behind him. He still has something left in the tank, but he's not the Keenan Allen that has been an underrated wide receiver throughout his time in the National Football League. He's not that guy. And I believe he had maybe like 70 receptions for Chicago last season, and that's commendable. But, I think the Saints, we need to be thinking about a long-term solution. Now, there are some guys on the team right now, some players that the Saints can actually lean on. And maybe this is a good thing that we haven't heard some of these reports about Keenan Allen coming in, or Amari Cooper coming in, or some of these other wide receivers that have size to them. Maybe it's because the New Orleans Saints believe in what they have in the locker room. We have to understand that some of the things that we have seen from the old regime, some of those things could possibly, cloud our judgment when it comes to these players. Like when you look at Bub Means, like Bub Means was drafted last season. And we look at Bub Means as just a role guy, right? 6'3", 6'4". And, he was drafted, under Dennis Allen. And, He was always hurt. He had opportunities to play. He made some plays, but never could really stay on the field. And in the back of our mind, we're like, well, maybe he's not good enough. But sometimes it's about the scheme. And we know that Kellen Moore does a really good job at utilizing the strength of a player, right? He doesn't look to try to make a player into something that he is not. He's not a guy that just walks in with a scheme, don't want to budge, don't want to change it. He makes his scheme based on what makes the players comfortable. So maybe this could be one of those cases where Bub Means could find success in a Kellen Moore offense. And the same thing with someone like Donovan Peoples-Jones. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a pretty talented receiver. Like, nobody's asking him to be a number one or a number two receiver. If you can get the ball in a crucial situation, if you can be that chain moving wide receiver, you may not get as many targets as Shaheed, Olave, or even Cooks. But if you are a difference maker, your number will be called and you will be effective. I just think that we have, kind of shied away from the things offensively that have made the Saints successful and special offensively throughout the years. There was really no primary receiver. Like, we knew that back in the day, you had Marcus Colston, and, he is that kind of receiver that we have been talking about on this episode. But, you also had other receivers around him, right? And those guys had their special role for the team. And maybe this is the New Orleans Saints saying, without saying, that they believe in Peoples-Jones. They believe maybe Bub Means can be able to bring something to the table. I think that this is one of those situations where maybe next season or during the NFL draft, you'll be able to address this situation. But right now, you're not going to find somebody that's just going to come in and give you that Michael Thomas type production. And, I just think that's wishful thinking at this point. Now, you can bring in a contributor, a guy that maybe, during the week, he'll probably make a play, make you feel good about the signing, but it's not going to be to a point where we're going to be looking at that wide receiver as that reliable guy that you can count on game in, game out. Now, maybe the light will come on for Bub Means, and maybe he can become a solid wide receiver in the National Football League, but that remains to be seen. I just think that this situation is going to have to resolve itself. I mean, maybe the 2026 draft. I mean, when you have yourself a collection of really talented receivers that are going to come out. But right now, this is going to be maybe the Bub Means, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Cedric Wilson type show, where those guys that are kind of the bigger receivers for the team are going to have to pick up that slack that we're looking for in a big body receiver. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments, and we'll go from there. Let me scroll down a little bit. It says, definitely need one TJ. I turn Johnson into one. Well, Juwan Johnson can serve that role. We know that Kellen Moore likes to utilize the tight ends. We have seen throughout his time in Dallas, during his time with the Chargers, his time with Philadelphia, he has really utilized the tight end. I mean, Dalton Schultz, one of the main reasons he got paid in Houston was because of what he did in Dallas, and he was a contributor. Jake Ferguson, Gerald Everett when he was with the Chargers, Dallas Goedert, with the Philadelphia Eagles. So Kellen Moore has done a really good job at utilizing the tight end. I expect for Juwan Johnson to get more targets and be a more integral part of the Saints offense because Kellen Moore historically has used tight ends. So if you're telling me that the New Orleans Saints are going to maybe utilize Juwan Johnson in that role, then I can say, okay, because Juwan Johnson isn't terrible. I do think he leaves a lot to be desired. And yes, sometimes I feel like, he goes missing when a team needs him most. But when he got more targets thrown at him towards the end of the season, he was making plays. So maybe Kellen Moore taking his offseason, understanding Juwan Johnson, he can put together a game plan, implement Johnson, and maybe we'll see a different Juwan Johnson than we have seen in years past. So if he can serve in that role, I mean, I think that would be a plus for the New Orleans Saints if the light can come on and he can become a solid receiving tight end. My dog Cartel was a good player. Giving a shout out to Cartel. It says, Brandon says, I just hope the offense get back to scoring a lot of points like old times. Yeah, Brandon. I mean, exciting offense, offensive football from the Saints would be a plus. You know, I think that's something that's been missing. You know, we talked about this on the State of the Saints podcast. You know, we understand that the New Orleans Saints aren't what we would like for them to be when it comes to the wins and the losses, and they're trying to find themselves post Sean, post Drew. But at least be exciting, right? I mean, at least be excited and give us something that we can actually cheer for and actually, you know, feel like, man, you know, they lost, but at least, man, they made it exciting. One thing you can always say about the New Orleans Saints during the Breeze, Peyton era, they didn't win every game, but the games were always exciting. Like they always had you on the edge of your seat. It was never there wasn't really too many blowouts. You knew that the Saints were going to be prepared, and you knew they were going to be competitive throughout the game. But you know, if you can get back to that, look, I don't need the Saints to be the greatest show on turf. All right, I don't need them to be the '98 Minnesota Vikings. I don't need that, right? You know, we don't need them to, you know what I'm saying, look like that. I mean, some people would like for the Saints to look like that, but they don't have to. Just be effective offensively. Just be able to put the ball into the end zone more times than not. And I think that people will have an appreciation for it. Once again, we all know that the Saints aren't where they need to be. But if you can see little nuances of change, something that, you know, hasn't been in the last 4 years, I think that Saints fans will feel optimistic about the future, because that's what it's all about. It's about the Saints fans trying to find reasons to be excited about the future. And, you know, if they could give the Saints fans something to be excited about, to look forward to, I think that people will enjoy Saints football much more than they have over the last couple of years. Bub looked like the only big threat. Well, look, I mean, he has the size, man. You know, like he has that size, and you know, him coming out of the University of Pittsburgh, you know, people were kind of looking at him, you know, like possibly, you know, being that Michael Thomas type guy. You know, like everybody talk about, you know, the RAS scores and all that kind of stuff. You know, talk about his athleticism, his abilities, and all that. I mean, there's something there. He just has to put it together, and he also has to stay healthy. But I expect for the New Orleans Saints this season to be a little bit more healthier than they have in years past. It just seems to me, and from the pulse of, you know, just the things that I've read, the things that I've seen, like some of the things the players have alluded to, it just seems like there wasn't a real strong emphasis on the body. It just seemed like, you know, maybe Dennis Allen went into desperation mode. He felt the pressure, understood that he was pretty much a dead man coaching, and, you know, he just kind of ran those guys into the ground and wasn't really looking at, you know, what he was doing and how it would be able to affect these guys to be able to, excuse me, to be able to perform on Sundays. And maybe that's the case, but it looks like Kellen Moore is putting more emphasis on that. We know that the New Orleans Saints have brought in a new medical team, which is something that Saints fans have been talking about. It has been a topic of conversation. You know, it's been written about how the New Orleans Saints training staff has been over the last few years. Not even few, like it's been a minute, you know, dating back as far as, you know, the controversial interview by Delvin Breaux. You know, so, you know, this is something that needed to change. And, you know, if Kellen Moore can get this steering in the right direction, I think that that'll be a plus. Now, there is no magic elixir when it comes to, you know, football and, you know, and health. I mean, the reality is guys are going to get hurt. I don't care who you have there. You can have Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. You can have Dr. Seuss. You know what I'm saying? You got Dr. J. It don't matter. Guys are going to get hurt. That's just the reality of it. It doesn't matter what you can do. I mean, you can prepare all all season. You can do as many Pilates, you can do as much yoga as you would like. Guys are going to get hurt. But you do want to be able to kind of keep it under control. You want to be able to control the controllables. You also want to be able to use some of this technology. There's always new and improved technology that comes out all the time. You know, I can remember like just going to the NFL scouting combine in Indianapolis, and you're walking through the convention center, and there's all these different, cryo machines. There's all these different type of medical treatments that these individuals that want you to stop by just to try to like see what they're offering, like these massage chairs, all of these different things that they just allow you just to, the average Joe Blow or the person that, maybe a coach, like they allow you to be able to like sit in these chairs and use some of these products. I mean, there's always different type of technology coming out. So, you have to be able to take advantage of it. You can't shy away from it. You can't, just dismiss it because you don't understand it. Sometimes this new tech can be able to help your players, like putting, the device on them to check their heart rate, to know how many miles they have run, how much, pressure their body has been under over the course of that week. I mean, you talk about, how many hours on a Microsoft tablet a player has had, right? I mean, if he doesn't have enough, then you're questioning that. Then why don't you question your own abilities to be able to keep these guys healthy? Oh, I mean, this guy's really been working himself half to death all week. How about we taper it back on Friday's practice or something? Like, got to be able to take advantage of this stuff and take care of your players. Because if the players see that you actually care about them, I mean, I heard this so many times. Players will tell you, like, if you show love to them, they'll show love to you. So look out for your players so they can be available on Sundays. Cook needs to stop. If he catches that ball down the middle, he will be hurt. Well, look, man, what do we expect for him to say? Black Tool. Like, what do you expect for him to say? Like, man, we short, we small, man. Man, they're gonna break me in half if I go across the middle. Like, of course he's not gonna say that. He has a confidence within himself, right? He's been in the league for 12 years. He's made some plays. He's been made, big time plays, over 1,000 yards, over 100 catches. Like, this guy, has done it in a major way. He's been to the Super Bowl. So all I'm saying is, when it comes to Brandin Cooks, like, of course he's going to say that, but it wouldn't hurt to have a 6'3", 6'4" wide receiver to accompany you. Having a tall wide receiver lined up on the outside against shorter corners would be huge. Yeah, but it's just because he's tall don't mean he's going to make some plays. I mean, we know, God bless him, Brandon Coleman. I mean, he was about 6'6". And every single year we was looking at him and every training camp, everybody was talking about, oh, this going to be the season. And then it never really panned out. So you can't just be tall. Like, you got to be tall and be able to make plays. You got to be, you can't just be tall out there. Man, he tall, but man, you seen how he dropped that pad? Michael Thomas, stop playing. Go get him. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know, man. I think that ship may have sailed, man. I don't see that happening. I can't go live today, family. A brother dealing with a back injury. So I wasn't in the right mindset. So I might be back next Monday, family. Appreciate y'all. Says Kai. Hope you get back, get better soon, man. Get well, and so you can get back to doing your content, man. Yeah, them backs aren't no joke, man. They not no joke. Like, when that back lock up on you, yeah, I mean, dang, that is not a good feeling. Hope you feel better, man. Thomas is 6'3", 215. Yeah, I mean, he is, but I don't know. There's a lot of mending have to be done between Michael Thomas and the Saints organization. Hurricane Mike, it would be nice, but I don't think the Saints are in a desperate need for big body guys. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I won't say they're in desperate need. I mean, somebody alluded to it about, Kellen Moore and, using Juwan Johnson. I mean, we know that Kellen Moore utilizes his tight ends in his system. So, that could be his way of, trying to address that big body receiver that we're talking about. We should just go get a body, no big name. Nobody is taking us to the Super Bowl. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, Vernell. Like if nobody's taking the Saints to the Super Bowl, right? If we all like the Saints are, not close to where they need to be. If we are all in agreement to that, why are we sitting up here, acting like, oh, we can't wait till next season in order to find this? Like we know that there are going to be some really good wide receivers coming out of college in 2026. So if you can wait on that, like why not? In the meantime, you can see what you actually have in Bud Means, see what you actually have in Cedric Wilson, see what you have in Donovan Peoples-Jones on top of Shaheed, Olave, and Cooks. See what you got. And maybe one of these guys will be able to pan out and make some plays. I mean, we look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling, right? I mean, what he was about 6'4". He went out there and made plays and was a difference maker. Was he a guy that was like Megatron, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins or something? No, he was not. But when the Saints needed him to make a play, he was that big body guy. He used his size in order for him to come down with the football. So it doesn't always have to come in a form of 100 catches, 1,700 yards, and 9 touchdowns in a season. I'm quoting Michael Thomas 2018 stats. You know what I'm saying? Over 149 receptions. It don't have to be that. Like it don't have to look like that. Like if you can contribute and make plays and you just so happen to be tall, like that's what you need. Because Shaheed and Olave are your number one and number two, wherever you want to put it. They are your number one, number two. They're going to get the majority of the targets. So unless Jeremiah Smith or Ron Williams coming through the door, like those are your two number ones right there. So whoever that 6'3", 6'4" guy is, he's just a role guy because he's not going to come in and take the spot of Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed unless those two individuals are not available. And now you throw in Brandin Cooks, of course, he's going to get a fair share of the targets as well. So when you look at it, it's like the 6'3", 6'4" receiver that we're talking about here is not going to be the number one guy. Like I said, unless they're one of those individuals like Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams, and then you got yourself a number one, and we can have an argument there. But anybody else is like, hey, hopefully Shuck is an accurate enough passer, especially throwing over the middle of the field. Yeah, man, he's pretty accurate, man. He has some really good arm talent. Like, so we haven't seen him with some live rounds yet, but all signs indicate that he is a really good thrower of the football. He has the size, 6'5", 220 pounds, and he's a guy that is pretty sure of himself. Like he wants to be a starter in the National Football League. He understands what this means, him being the highest quarterback drafted by the Saints since 1971. He understands that. And he understands, that he is, like they selected him to be that starter. But look, credit to Spencer Rattler, coming to OTAs prepared, look different, look more crisp. Everybody's talking about how different he looks versus, how he looked rookie season. And now as, going into the sophomore season, all this stuff has to play out. Now you got to go out there and you got to play the games. Like it's one thing going up against the defense in an OTA and some shorts and a jersey on. It's another thing to actually have live rounds. People trying to take your head off. It's a difference. But in the meantime, both quarterbacks have done some really good things. Both quarterbacks are really trying to push one another, and that's all you can ask for. If Spencer Rattler plays and practices so undeniably, and the Saints are like, well, like we just gonna go with Spencer, that's actually a good thing because you're not really rushing Tyler Shuck to the field. He still has an opportunity to be able to get some mental reps and be able to become that pro that you need him to be. Now, some people will say, well, time isn't on his side. He's 26 years old. Well, he will be at the start of the season. So he can't afford to really rest and it's like you basically wasting his years. But if he can sit down and he can be able to like just, kind of take a deep breath and don't have to really be under that pressure at this point. He has plenty of football ahead of him in the National Football League. That's a good thing to me. So, and it's also a good thing for the New Orleans Saints because this could be one of those situations where, maybe down the line you have to go to the table and you can actually get something for these guys. If Tyler Shuck ends up playing really well, Spencer Rattler plays really well, like that's a decision that you can make, and then turn into some draft capital or turn into a player that can actually get you over the top. So, I think that both guys are playing well. TJ, your thoughts on WrestleMania 42 not being in NOLA in 2026 and returning to Las Vegas? Well, look, number one, I would say this. That would never have happened if Vince McMahon was still the owner of WWE. Like, you can say whatever you want about Vince McMahon. I'm talking about Vince McMahon, the businessman, not the person that people have been talking about over the last year and a half. Not that person. It wouldn't have happened. But it just shows you the shift between Vince McMahon's WWE and TKO Endeavor's WWE. They are willing to sell themselves to the highest bidder. I anticipate WWE in the near future actually having a WrestleMania overseas. I anticipate multiple WrestleManias kind of similar to this right here, being in the same city back to back, something we are not used to seeing. So that just shows you like they are about business. WWE made a commitment to New Orleans, and Las Vegas ended up writing them a check and made them an offer that they couldn't refuse. And it's unfortunate for the city of New Orleans. I do think that is pretty classless, because if you make a business deal, I feel like you need to honor it. But it also just shows you that sometimes business can be cruel, business can be harsh, and yeah, man, sometimes you don't always get what you want. But I believe there was an announcement that said that next year they will give New Orleans Money in the Bank, which is one of their more premier PLE, premium live events, as they like to call it. So, I think it sucks, but at the end of the day, it just shows you that TKO is definitely open for business, and things are subject to change. Unlike a Vince McMahon led WrestleMania, he would have stayed there because he felt like he made that commitment. Let's see. Olave is too small and weak. He should retire and stay healthy. Well, I don't think he needs to retire. I mean, I feel like he needs to retire on his own terms. If he feels like he can still play, then I say that he needs to play. I don't think he needs to retire unless, you keep on getting these concussions over and over again. Then I would definitely advocate for that. I believe the New Orleans Saints are in the audience watching the State of the Saints. Make sure you like and subscribe. Well, look, I believe New Orleans are in the audience watching. Well, I don't know if you're talking about the team or not, but I'm pretty sure that they watch your boy. I'm pretty sure they do. Having all the receivers we have on the roster with Rattlers, mobile ability is going to be something to watch. Yeah, I mean, and also like Tyler Shuck's mobile ability. Like, don't get it wrong and don't get it twisted. Like, Tyler Shuck can run. I think he ran like a 4.6 at the combine. That's pretty fast for a quarterback. So, both of these guys can take advantage of the RPOs. I don't want people to think like, Tyler Shuck, he's 6'5" back there, think he Drew Bledsoe or something like that, where he just a statue in the pocket. Like, he can move too now. He can move. He was here as a rookie with Hemi Graham. Let's see. Much love, family. Kai giving much love to the family. Chosen, what's going on, man? It says, TJ, did you see the glory years of the Saints on social media? No, I didn't. I didn't check that out, man. I'm gonna have to check it out. TJ Bub means I don't know how tall, but he is, but he played big, no funny, and no big games. Yeah, I think that he's, I think he's like maybe 6'2" or 6'3" or something like that, man. It depends on the article that's being written. I mean, I didn't see him, get as tall as 6'4" on his scouting report, like at the NFL Combine. His official is like 6'2" and and a couple inches of tall or whatever like that. So they'll say like 6'3". So I mean, I'm gonna look at the NFL's measurables because they really measure these guys' hands and height and weight and all that kind of stuff. So whatever the NFL profile says that it is based on their combine, combine stuff for the most part. He took part in a combine that year, so yeah, man. He's like 6'2" or close to 6'3". Mike T is done. Nobody wanted him last year. Dude go maybe 80-ish receptions since 2020. Put a fork in it. Yeah, man. It is, yeah, man. Ain't nobody, I don't want to say nobody call. I don't know exactly what exactly happened, but I just don't. I'd be shocked to see Michael Thomas back in the Saints uniform. I'll be shocked. Like I ain't gonna say I'll be shocked if Michael Thomas ever play in the NFL again. Like I think that could be a possibility, but for the Saints, I'll be shocked. I think the next time you'll probably see Michael Thomas in New Orleans is probably like when they put him like in a Ring of Honor or something like that. And yes, Michael Thomas deserves to be in a Ring of Honor. Like I know some people, nah, bro. Michael Thomas deserves to be in a Ring of Honor. Point blank, period. I don't care. You argue with yourself on that one. Says, I don't know. You could play basketball. The NBA's playoffs could use your voice too. Let's see. I didn't know you. Yeah, man. Look, man, I ain't played basketball in so long, man. So I was at the gym, and I just took Paxton to the gym, and we just stopped at this place that I used to work out at, and they had a basketball court, and I just took him there, and we were just shooting around a little bit, man. So, end up like he wanted me to record him shooting and stuff like that. So I just recorded us kind of shooting around, having a good time. But yeah, man, it was fun, man. I haven't played basketball. It had to be like over a year since the last time I played basketball, but. He likes it, so we probably just gonna make this a weekend father son thing where we go play basketball every week. Let's see. TJ and family was happening at work, but I'm listening. Man, Drummer, appreciate you for being here, man. Let's see. We could have drafted back and still got Golden and an offensive tackle or an offensive guard, but GM can't look outside the box. Well, look, Jack, I don't have an issue with him not trading back and not trying to, trade up and all that. I ain't got no problem with it. Like, you had 9 draft picks, you picked all 9 of the draft picks. And that, man, some of those guys are going to work out. Like, some of those players that they drafted are going to be difference makers. And they needed Calvin Banks. They needed Tyler Shutt. They needed some youth at the linebacker position. You're changing from a 4-3 to a 3-4, so you got yourself some interior guys. Look, I'm not gonna knock the New Orleans Saints draft. Like it's hard for me to sit up here and question what they did because I don't know what these guys are gonna do. Like, and we don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. All we have is a wait and see approach. Now, some of us would, probably jump the gun. And, be like, hey, I don't think it's going to work out. And that's fine. You're well within your rights to do that, right? You're well within your rights. But at the end of the day, it's like you don't know if this was the right decision or not. And we also don't know what these wide receivers are going to bring to the table. We know that the Saints have a new offensive-minded head coach, a guy that we have seen find success offensively in the league, and you have a defensive coordinator who has found success in Brandon Staley. So, I mean, at this point, you just got to have a wait and see approach, unless you want to kind of be ahead of it and maybe you see something that others can't see. But I just would like to reserve my judgment on that. Like, I know that, theoretically, what you're saying is right. They could have made some adjustments. They could have been aggressive when it comes to trading up and moving places and all that. They could have done that. But, they didn't. And I don't have an issue with that, man. Also, Gabriel Davis can be a good pickup, especially starting with Buffalo, playing with Allen. Yeah, Gabe Davis. Yeah, I mean that could be a good pickup, man. I never really looked at Gabe Davis as a number one guy. I always looked at him as a person that can be a really good role player. I think that one thing that Jacksonville did, I think they pretty much fell for the Alvin Harper effect. And for those that don't know, Alvin Harper was the wide receiver opposite of Michael Irvin back in the 90s when the Dallas Cowboys was out there winning a bunch of football games, going to the Super Bowl every year. And, Michael Irvin, if I say Michael Thomas, I apologize. Michael Irvin, he was the guy that was demanding the double team. Michael Irvin was the guy who was, out there making the plays, and defenses was staying up at night trying to cover him. And Alvin Harper was kind of the shifty, speedy type wide receiver, and he made some plays, man. And Tampa rung the phone, man, and offered him a good bit of money for a player that during that time. And he just never lived up to it. He couldn't be that number one guy. And I think that Jacksonville did that with Gabe Davis. They seen Gabe Davis in that divisional game score 4 touchdowns, and they're like, man, let's get some of that and give him that big time contract. And he didn't live up to it. But it doesn't mean that Gabe Davis isn't like a really good contributor for a team. If you put Gabe Davis on his team, he definitely gonna make some plays. Just not gonna be that number one guy, because I mean he's not. Good player, talented guy, but not a number one. Shuck is 1 year older than Rattler. People are flipping out over 1 year. Yeah. I guess the reason why people flipping out over 1 year, because they look at the natural order of the NFL. Normally when players come in, they are maybe 20, 21 years old, and you feel like you can get way more use out of them. But if you look at guys like Joe Burrow was like 24 coming into the league. Joe Burrow was up there in age, so it doesn't matter, right? But I think people are looking at it from this perspective, like, okay, if he's 26 at the start of the season and he's not starting, then that means that he's going to get his first start in his second year at the age of 27. But if you think about it, Drew Brees was 27 years old when he came to New Orleans, and he played 16 years for the Saints. So it really doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. All that matters is, can the guy play? And and the only person that should feel like they have pressure is Tyler Shuck, because you could feel like time isn't on your side, but I don't think he looks at it that way, and I don't think the Saints look at it that way either. So it's not the end of the world if Spencer Rattler end up being a starting quarterback and Tyler Shuck has to sit. I mean, worst case scenario, he goes out there, he becomes the starter in 2026, and he's 27 years old. We know that these quarterbacks are playing in the league much longer, right? I mean, the rules pretty much are there to try to make sure that they're upright and they don't sustain major injuries. So as far as, Tyler Shuck not being available, year in, year out, that's a pretty low probability. And, I know he's had some injuries in college, but it was just unfortunate things. It wasn't like, he woke up one morning and he just had a bad ankle or something like that. It just freakish accidents that just happened to the guy. Aaron Rodgers don't even know if he wants to retire as a Packer. Dude is tripping. Well, look, man, we know how it go, man. These players towards the twilight of their career, they end up, getting traded, end up getting released, and they feel some type of way. Some of these players, they feel like, man, I've dedicated my entire life to trying to bring a championship to to this city to win football games for the city, to represent this organization, blase, blase, and then they just get rid of me and they just feel some type of way, right? I mean, we know that a lot of these football players, they have egos. And, when you affect their ego in any way, it hurts them. They're walking around with a bruised ego. So when it's all said and done, he'll come back just like Brett Favre did, right? Brett Favre, left, went to the Jets, went to the Vikings, and but he ended up going back and mending fences with the Packers. And I expect for Aaron Rodgers that to happen to him. They have one, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Yeah, I believe in Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think he's gonna make some plays. Business is business. Hopefully, broke people can learn something about the deal. Well, look, as being a broke man myself, you know what I'm saying? But I do understand business. You know what I'm saying? I do understand how business works, how things, are. Like, things are subject to change. Like, people. Man, them days like where, man, I want to buy your land. Okay, you can buy my land. Look, man, if you give me 1 month, I'm gonna come through with the money. All right, shake on it. And that man or that lady will probably hold that land for a month because they made a handshake agreement with you. But that was back in them cowboy days, right? Ain't nobody saying yee-haw no more, and ain't people rolling up on horses in 10-gallon hats. Well, maybe in Dallas somewhere. Maybe they're still doing that. Maybe if you got your boots on the ground. But all I'm saying is everything has to be done with contracts. And you got to make sure there are no loopholes in said contract. And people are always looking for leverage. And people are always looking for opportunities. Most business tycoons are opportunists. And if an opportunity presents itself, they're ready to pounce. Like a cheetah on its prey in an African safari. That's just a fact, folks. And, sometimes you're going to feel some type of way about it, right? Man, I can't believe this person reneged on the deal. I can't believe they did this, man. I thought we had something. Nope. If you don't have it in writing, if you don't have an ironclad contract with no loopholes in that joint, like, you are opening a door for an individual to possibly shaft you, like, you would hope that it doesn't happen, but that's just the way that it goes, man. That's just the way that it goes. But, always know your worth, folks. Always know your worth. Mike says, man, this team is either going to surprise us or it's going to be a process. Well, I think it's going to be a little bit in between, Mike. I think you're going to see some nuances of promise, but also you're going to see a work in progress, like, because this is a team that's trying to figure out who they are and what they are. Apparently, Samuel met with the Dolphins too. Well, look, Asante Samuel is a free agent. That's what you want to do. Like, man, these guys, you get drafted by a team, you don't really have a say-so in where you go. When you're a free agent, you just want to feel like you matter to a team. Like, and you also want to be able to make the right decision. If you're a highly touted free agent, at this point, there's not too many guys of his talent and skill set are still out there. So teams are going to be looking at him. They are going to want him to possibly join their team. And you're probably going to hear even more whispers start to percolate as organized team activities, mini camp, training camp happens because guys get hurt. That's just the way that it goes. And these players got to make sure that it's the best case scenario for them. They got to make sure that they are put in the right position. The money is right. The location is right. They got to make sure that that's right for them, because as those players came out of college, the team that selected them, they did the same thing. They did their homework. They did their due diligence. So now that a guy's a free agent, I'm pretty sure he wants to see and feel the love before he makes that commitment. Man, TJ, I don't care. You know me. I'm going to be the one to say it, but I'm not comfortable with this wide receiver group. Look, and that's fair. Like that's fair. And there's a lot of cons that you can throw out there. There's some pros that you can throw out there. But my thing is, I just have a wait and see approach because I'm always kind of skeptical about putting a take or a view out there without really seeing it in real time. I try to base my opinion on things that I've seen or things happening in real time, or that happens and that just happens constantly. Like when I talk about Mickey Loomis, it's a collection of things that have happened and accumulated over the course of time. It's not like I'm just going at Mickey Loomis's neck or feeling like, okay, man, he can be doing better as a general manager. I got a large sample size to try to, that validates the way that I feel about Loomis or any other thing going on with the team. But in this case, the Saints have a new head coach that's completely different from the head coach that they just fired. And I just think that you have to have a wait and see approach. Sometimes we just got to look at it, Lee. Some of these coaches don't know what the hell they're doing, and they don't know how to utilize some of these players. Like, it's okay to say that. Like, we want to believe that these organizations just have everything under control and they just make all the right decisions. They don't. There's a reason why they constantly, and I'm not just talking about the Saints here, but I'm talking about bad teams that are badly ran and they find themselves in the top 3 and the top 5 every single year. They're around there. They're flirting with it. They might have the 7th pick this year. They might have the 2nd pick the next year, right? Because those organizations don't have all the answers. If you're constantly picking in the top 5, I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how many individuals or influence that you have to make people not like really jump on you. The reality is you're not a well-ran organization. You're not. Well-ran organizations or organizations that you rarely talk about in a negative term. And if you do, it's probably because you are trying to find something to be negative about them, when it comes to their performance. Like Baltimore. Like the Baltimore Ravens, you can what are you gonna say? Oh man, they can't win the big game. They can't get there. But they're in the playoffs every single year. Every single year they have a really good draft. They bring in players and they just completely like just this shuffle, like and find great players and elite players at certain positions. They have a knack of finding real true dogs during this collegiate scouting process. They always do. But when you look at teams like, and no disrespect, but I gotta call it, like the Browns, the Giants, how they've been over the last couple of years. Like these teams find themselves in purgatory all the time. Well, I don't want to say the Giants, I'll say the Jets. Okay, Jets and the Browns, like Raiders, these teams find themselves in purgatory all the time. And why? Because they're not well ran. It's just the truth. But I like to believe that, you got to have a wait and see approach when it comes to this, right? You can make strong arguments about bad ran organizations like the Browns and the Jets because you have a large sample size. For me to say that this wide receiver room isn't going to knock my socks off or it won't be effective, I just, I look at Shaheed, I look at Olave. They can make plays. We have seen them make plays. But we also seen Kellen Moore utilize guys and get guys paid. Like I said, Dalton Schultz got paid. Cedric Wilson, who played for the Saints, he got paid by Miami. He left Dallas to go to Miami because they offered him more money. He gets these guys paid, and he gets them paid because he knows how to feed the hungry, right? So maybe this could be that case. Maybe sometimes, you need that Phil Jackson to bring in that triangle defense, that triangle in order for you to be able to, make some plays. And bring in that triangle in order for you to be effective as a team offensively, defensively. Sometimes you need that, right? Like there was nothing like Doug Collins was the coach of the Bulls when Michael Jordan first got there, right? But he couldn't get them over the hump. Then in comes Phil Jackson bringing in that triangle, man, we're going to make this thing work. And they won 6 championships. Sometimes it just takes the right guy to know how to utilize these players to try to utilize the talent that is around them. And some coaches do it better than others. And you know that's possible because look at Sean Payton when he was here. Sean Payton would utilize guys that nobody really heard of, make them effective. Those players go to a different team and they cannot replicate the type of like offensive or defensive performances they had with the Saints. Why? Because you had a coach that understood the players, understood their skill sets, and utilized it accordingly. So sometimes, you just got to have a wait and see approach. I don't know. I don't know what this team going to look like. Listen to the NOLA podcast reporters. They say the team looks more organized. Yeah. I mean, I was listening to that the other night. And shouts out to my guy, Rod Walker, Luke Johnson. Shouts out to them boys, man. Yeah, man. I mean, everybody was talking about how organized, they look. And, but everybody kind of conceded, just like I have, that, you have to have a wait and see approach. Right now, the morale is down, right? Anything that involves the Saints that you can kind of find that's positive, like you trying to grasp, you know what I'm saying, at that. Like you're trying to like gather that. Does that make sense? You're trying to gather, like, so if you felt so dejected after a 5-12 season as an onlooker, as a reporter, as a fan, whatever, right? You felt like, oh man, like I can't take too much more of this, right? So anything positive, like you try to grab onto it to try to give you a reason to look forward to what the 2025 season can hold. So, like stuff like having an organized practice, stuff like changing around the medical staff, things like listening, like Kellen Moore listening to the players and winning the locker room over one day at a time. Like those are the type of things that you want to hear because you want to be optimistic about the team. Like nobody wants to go into this season dejected about the Saints. Nobody wants to sit in front of their television, get the hot wings, get the popcorn, get the queso dip, and watch their New Orleans Saints just get slapped all around the field. Like nobody wants to see that. People want to be optimistic about what they're actually watching on television when it comes to the Saints. So if good coaching, organization, listening to the players, being a player's coach, also being a good teacher and putting guys in a position to make plays, to make them feel good about themselves, to feel like you are counting on them to be a part of the process, that is a plus. So I'm not going to poo-poo on that. But if things go sideways, then we can have that conversation. But I'm not looking for reasons to try to just completely like just defecate on the team. Like if there's some good things going on and there's some good things happening for the New Orleans Saints, then I think that we should just hold on to that and see. I don't expect for the New Orleans Saints to win a division. I don't expect for the New Orleans Saints to make the playoffs. But if we can see some promising things happening that we can look forward to or build on, like I always constantly use the Detroit Lions. When Detroit first, like when Dan Campbell first got to Detroit, they were terrible. Like they were bad. Like I can remember. Like I'm not one of those people that just gonna sit up here and just talk about all the good things I said and not look at the bad. I was like, man, maybe they need to get rid of Dan Campbell. I've said that because they look that bad. But then the next season, you start to see, okay, they had a really good draft, bringing in Aiden Hutchinson, bringing in all those other players, Jack Campbell, and they start to build through the draft. They didn't go to the playoffs this second season. They didn't go there, but they end up like showing that they were on the cusp. Green Bay, all they needed to do was win that game, the final game of the season. They would have made the postseason. Detroit played spoiler, knocked them out of playoff contention at Lambeau, by the way. That's the whole, Jamal Williams, don't get it twisted. We all, it's all dog over here. The famous soundbite there. Then the next season, they end up going all the way to the NFC Championship game. Should have won that game versus the 49ers. Then last season, they had the number 1 seed, went to the divisional round. Unfortunately, somebody named Jaden Daniels, a phenom, came through and played spoiler. But you see every single year, from Dan Campbell's first year, which was a disaster. Second year, started believing himself. Third year, man, you know what I'm saying? Like we further than we ever been. And then last year, man, we got the number 1 seed. So if you can see some promising things on the horizon, rather it be draft picks, guys showing flashes, hold on to that. And if you see that Kellen Moore, there's a possibility of him knowing what he's doing and putting together a coaching staff where he understands that he's limited at this point, but he has some guys that have been there and done that, and you're leaning and depending on those guys, then I just say that's some optimism. And that's all you want, man. You want to be optimistic about your team. Like nobody wants to be sitting up here feeling bad and looking sad about their football team. So it's good to hear positive things that are happening. We got, like I said, you got to have a wait and see approach, but it's good to hear some good things are happening. 9-8, 10-7 depends on how healthy the team stays. Let you in the Superdome for free. Amen. As long as we beat Atlanta Thanksgiving weekend, when I go down to the ATL, I will be all right. Yeah, you definitely want to see the Saints knock off the Falcons, regardless of how the season looking. Some people want us to be like Atlanta fans. Well, that's not gonna happen. But I want people to understand this. Like here on the State of the Saints podcast, I know that for some apparent reason, this show has got the stigma of being a hyper negative show. I don't. Number one, I just think that people have like attached me to that, and they like, okay, like he's this negative guy, and people don't even really watch the show. But it's okay, But I know that that's the reputation, but that's not what I'm all about. Like, if there's some things that are happening that I feel like are going in the wrong direction, yes, it is going to be frustrated. And yes, I am going to have my point of view about it. But if I see the New Orleans Saints actually doing something, like saying the right things, doing the right things, I'm going to say it. I will give them credit where credit is due. And, you can't have an amen corner all the time. Like, you can't be looking for an amen corner all the time. That's not healthy. That's not healthy with your sports. That's not healthy in your life. Like, you don't want somebody that just tells you everything good about yourself and just leave you basically, on an island. Because if you have this false sense of reality about who you are and what you can do, like that's dangerous right there. So, I like to have a good balance, a good yin with the yang. When you say positive, like, when things are not looking good, people like, man, you so negative. Like, what's there to be positive about? But I always have this thing. It's the beginning of the season. Like, we don't know what the season has in store. You don't. Like, you don't. Like, every season, everybody starts off at 0-0. And every single year, there's a team that everybody like, oh, man, they suck. They ain't going to be nothing. And then all of a sudden, like that team just get hot, start winning a bunch of football games, make the playoffs, look like one of the best teams in the league. And then a team that everybody anticipates to possibly win it all end up picking in the top 5. Maybe they had a bunch of injuries. Maybe the coach, lost the locker room. Like we see this every single year. So when the season starts over, I'll always have a wait and see approach. I never just sit up here like, oh man, this is just going to be like just a downright failure. Like, I don't know. You don't know. All your feelings, all your views are based on what happened last season. Like if you sitting up here talking about how the team gonna look and they're gonna look terrible, like you're doing that based on the product that was presented to you last season. But if you get the right coach, if you get the right personnel, you get some attrition on your side, things can go completely different than last year. Now, I don't know if it's going to look like the playoffs. I don't know if it's going to look like a division championship, but it can look like more respectable football that you can actually stomach your food while watching. And at this point, that seems like that's pretty doggone good. She was always like, I can stomach my food. Because sometimes, man, some of them games, man, I ain't even want to eat. If you watched John O'Born last week talking about the Falcon hype, I was on them. Yeah, man, look, they get excited every single year, especially like when some new stuff starts to happen, bringing in new people. Look, I get it, man, but you got to do something. Like, you got to do something, man. And you could tell, like, man, you could tell they want to win so bad. Like, because anytime they have that, I say that all the time. Anytime the Falcon fans feel like they got a competitive advantage, they in your mentions, and it's vitriol from years of frustration bottled up, and they wanted to say these things, and now they got their chance. But when they go bad, I mean, man, a lot of crow got to be eaten if you're a Falcon fan, because when they went on that run, like when they beat Tampa twice, and it was like, man, they had that good, 3-4 game lead on the division. And I mean, an absolute monumental collapse. Like, unbelievably bad collapse. Like, man, I mean, man, they want to win so bad, bro. They want to win so bad. I mean, I understand. I think some Saints reporters are not negative enough. Well, that's the thing. Like, as a reporter, and this is where I get the luxury, right? Yes, I am a journalist, right? And if you ever like check out my writing, I know, like, I pretty much write in a form of a way where it's not so, like, I have like an opinion piece, you know what I'm saying, from time to time, but for the most part, it's about telling people the facts, like what is going on. Like, you got to be impartial, like, about the situation. That's why a lot of reporters, like, people like, man, why don't they say this? Like, they have an obligation to the people, but all the while, you also have to take yourself out of the situation. Like, if you want that, you probably want to just talk to a reporter off the record or something like that. But for the most part, like, their job is to give you the information that you need in order for you to formulate your opinion, right? They don't want to give their opinion to you. Like, that's something that any journalist will tell you. Like me, you know what I'm saying, as a podcaster, I'm talking to you from a fan perspective. As a journalist, I give you information and I just get you to draw the conclusion based on that. Like, if that makes sense. And that's their job. So when people say, like, man, they should have said this, they should have said this. Now, there are times where, you got to call a spade sometimes. And, I do think that, and I'm not just saying this about, reporters, that in New Orleans, but I'm just talking about in general. Sometimes people, get nervous about their positions, get nervous about the access. They get nervous about those things. Like, there was this old saying I was looking and reading in this book, and, it was a person that was talking about trying to grow in the world of journalism. And the person, like, they asked about, journalism and how to get into it. It basically said an individual, like, are you going to be a person of the industry, or are you going to be a person of the people? Are you going to be a man of the people? Right? Or what type of, reporter, what type of, reporting are you going to, you're going to be? What type of personality are you going to be? I chose to be a man of the people, like, I can easily just write articles and just keep it moving. But me, I have something to say. And I know sometimes that might rub people the wrong way. I may ask questions that people may make people feel uncomfortable, but these are questions that you, the watcher, the listener, viewer, whatever, want to hear. So, but from a journalistic perspective, from, it's one of those things where, it's not about them giving you an opinion. Like, they want you to formulate your own. They just give you the information. And that's fair. TJ, give me your top 5 coolest uniforms in the NFL. Said Josh, thank you very much for $2. Coolest uniforms. Well, you got to put the Chargers in there. I mean, them powder blues. I will put them in there. The old Seattle Seahawks uniforms that they wear, them throwbacks, those are pretty cool. Trying to see. I like Detroit Lions uniforms, like the blue uniforms. I think they're pretty cool. Baltimore, I think Baltimore, that purple and black, and sometimes they'll probably put a little gold in it. I think that's pretty cool. And trying to see. Man, that's basically it, man. I mean, and the Titans, like the old Houston Oilers, like they released those. They've been wearing those throwbacks, yeah. So yeah, those are probably some of the best uniforms to me. The Saints media be asking the softest questions. Well, like I said, I don't want to say they ask like the softest questions. Like I always give credit to Catherine Terrell. Like Catherine Terrell, if we want to talk about like man or women of the people, like that pretty much is the personification of that. Like she's not afraid to ask any uncomfortable questions. She's willing to investigate. She's willing to try to do the research. She's willing to put in the work. And like I said, when you see people like that and you hear like them during the interview process and then when people, when people say like, them asking soft questions, it's like, well, she doesn't, you know what I'm saying? And she is like a part of that. So, do I feel like sometimes like some of the questions could be a little bit more, for the people? Yeah. But you do have a nice, nice size, say collection of individuals. They do ask the questions that we want to hear. They do. So I mean, sometimes that there are some questions that get left behind. But people like Catherine Terrell, like, I think that we all as individuals that watch this team, cover this team, should have an appreciation for the work she puts in. Hit that like. What's up, TJ the Great? What's going on, Derek? Appreciate you for being here, man. Y'all better hit the sub and like button. Please do. Please do, man. I need every like and subscriber I can. And people think, man, you hurting over here. That's why ain't nobody watching what you be doing. Like, okay, whatever. Yeah. Oh man, let's see. Respect that heart. LOL. One guy will ask a good question and the rest are soft. Look, I just that's a good. That's a good question, or what I'm saying, like that's a good question, a good like topic. Like if I ask have a reporter to come on the show next time, I'm gonna ask him about that. I'm gonna ask him about the criticisms of journalism and stuff, and do they feel like the questions are a little bit soft? I'm gonna ask, because it's not that I just want to know this. It's like I hear this all the time, and I don't know. Like I listen to some of the questions, and I don't think they bad, but you also got to ask your question. You also got to ask, like, what can you do? Like, okay, if Loomis goes in there, right? If Mickey Loomis goes in there and basically shuts down the questions that everybody wants to know, and he just like closed mouth about it, like it's kind of pointless to keep on asking him the same question over and over again, because he's not going to answer. And it's only going to make you even more frustrated because he ain't answering the questions. So I can understand it from a certain perspective. The Saints aren't like some of these other organizations where you have a big time media. Like if if you go to Philadelphia and Howie Roseman like goes to the like podium and the Philadelphia media asks him a question and they like, I ain't taking none of the question about this today. You best believe like the next article they're gonna write, Howie Roseman afraid to answer the tough questions, stuff like that. But that's shark infested water out there on them East Coast reporters, the Washington DCs, the Phillies, the New Yorks, the Jerseys. That's shark infested waters right there. You got to be an absolute bulldog in order to thrive in that type of environment. But I want to say thank you all for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Really do appreciate it. Once again, I'm going to the No Flex Zone podcast immediately following this episode. I'm going to go ahead and put that link inside of the comment. If you're not doing anything, you can come on over. I'm going to be discussing New Orleans Saints football with Andre, the host of the Flex Zone podcast. So that's going to kick off at 10:30 Eastern time. So that's in the next 8 minutes. So if you're not doing anything, come on by. Follow me on X at TJAYJones8. Also check out Saints Talk with Timothy J. Jones every Wednesday, 7 p.m. on the Bleacher Report. And also, man, shouts out to the new viewers that are watching this on Twitch. We added Twitch, a platform there. So this is my first episode going live on Twitch. So if you're watching this right now on Twitch, really do appreciate you. Much love to you. You can check out previous episodes on Spotify, iHeart, and as well as other streaming platforms that are available to you. Till next time. All I gotta say is, who that?
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast.
I didn't know what I wanted to press. I'm like, yeah,
Thank you.
All right, man, we out.
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast. Please subscribe to our channel.
All I gotta say is, who that?